Even when Extortion 1-7 happened, there were moments where I felt incredibly calloused and cold and couldn't figure out what was going on. I even brought in a psych at one point, like, hey man, is there something wrong with me? Like, I'm having a hard time. There were moments where grief would just be overwhelming, but then other times where I couldn't even cry if I wanted to, and I thought there was something wrong with me. And he said, no, you guys do this really well. You compartmentalize.
It's called Hell Week, and for good reason, designed to push Navy SEAL candidates to their physical and mental limits. But this morning, 24-year-old Kyle Mullen, seen in these LinkedIn and Yale photos, is dead.
You just say the Senate is, how involved is the Senate and Congress in training?
God, we get RFIs all the time, requests for information all the time.
Why?
All the time. If people are interested in buds. People are interested in what we do. It's been almost 2.5 years since Kyle died. And in some ways, enough is enough. It's time for the truth to come out.
What kind of performance-enhancing drugs are you finding specifically?
The Navy is also dealing with the fallout of a growing scandal that's exposed a culture of abuse, cheating, and drug use in its SEAL candidate program.
There's a guy that apparently comes from off base. The candidates will escort him on base. He's got a Pelican case full of drugs, line guys up, injects them, and no one's the wiser, and there's no evidence of what went down.
I've seen this play out in the Marine Corps and the Navy. It's how our institutions run these kind of cases now. If it's public, they will do whatever they want. The rules don't apply. And you've got to have somebody who's ready to get in that knife fight, because you can't be confident that anybody's going to conduct themselves honorably.
What a shame.
So this is just the tip of the iceberg.
The latest now on the death of a Navy SEAL candidate, which is putting a spotlight on the grueling training session known as Hell Week.
Biggest loss in SEAL team history still to this day.
Yeah. Very strange that prior to that Red Wings was, and somehow I was directly involved with both.
Allahu Akbar.
You can see the fuselage, you can see the outline of the helo sitting there. And so they're just looking at this black heat spot. And I was like, hey man, can you zoom out? Like, what are you doing so zoomed in on this one heat spot? Like, God, there's a fire somewhere in the crash site, but like zoom out and show me the fuselage. Like, let's figure out what we're looking at here. And then the guy just looked up at me and said, that's the fuselage. That's the helo. And it was nothing but a heat spot. Print out the manifest. I want to understand which half of the troop it was. And then they printed out and handed it to me, and I'm going down the list, and I said, hey, no, this is the troop roster. I need the manifest. You made a mistake. And the guy said, no, sir, that's the manifest. That was who was on the bird. And in that moment, I knew, oh my God, it's everybody. It's everybody. We go to the front door, and then the rest is just these flashbulb moments of grief. I remember Patsy, I remember her dropping to the floor and then bouncing up and running from the house. Anger, I've heard it said, is like taking a poison pill and expecting it to hurt somebody else. It was destroying me from the inside. Like, you convince yourself at some point, like, well, this is what the nation requires. This is what the warfighter ethos requires. And if it costs me everything, then so be it. This is the burden I bear. his death, we were talking, and he said, you know, he said, as hard as this lifestyle is, he said, I will never leave this command unless I'm forced to. And I said, well, why? And he said, because I'm addicted to feeling important. I was like, golly, dude, that's brutal. I feel the same way. Most of us did.
But I do have a question. I'm hesitant to ask it. So it's not a no disrespect, but
None taken.
why were so many guys on one bird?
And that's the deployment we lost Adam.
That's that deployment.
That was that deployment, yeah.
Do you want to get into specifics?
Yeah, I'll say something because then I know I don't want to repeat what's already been discussed by a lot of the guys on your show, but and I know that some of the guys talked about that one, but there's an interesting part to that story that I think is worth telling that hasn't been told yet, at least to my knowledge.